Hello, it's Andy from Keyword Insights, and I just wanted to quickly talk to you about keyword fragmentation, which is an unintended consequence from SERP-based clusterers like our own and our competitors, and why and how we've resolved that and why that means better results for you, the user clustering your keywords. First of all, I just want to go back a little bit and explain that there are two methods of clustering: SERP-based clustering and semantic or NLP-based clustering. Now, a SERP-based clustering tool is like Keyword Insights. Let's say you had 10 keywords and you uploaded them to a keyword clustering tool. We analyze all the search results for it, and depending on how many URLs they have in common with each other, we cluster them together. I.e., does Google think these keywords mean the same things? Okay, we'll group them together. And you can see that in our SERP similarity tool within Keyword Insights. So you can see these three keywords: houses for sale California, homes for sale California, and properties for sale California. They share, I think it's about 80% of the URLs in common with each other. Therefore, those three keywords would belong in the same cluster. Now, a semantic or NLP-based clustering tool, it uses, NLP, it uses natural language processing to group keywords together. So it's clustered based on what an algorithm thinks the keywords mean, which isn't always so accurate. A good example would be skateboard wheel and skateboard wheels. Now, if you clustered those two keywords or Googled them, you'd actually see the results are quite different. Skateboard wheel is generally more transactional. More informational. It's like learning about what it is. Skateboard wheels is generally more informational. What are they, etc., etc. An NLP-based clusterer or a semantic-based clustering tool would have grouped those two together: skateboard wheels, because surely it means the same thing. Whereas a SERP-based clustering tool might put them into different clusters because the results are different, because it knows the intent is different from billions and billions of user data points and that kind of thing. So SERP-based clustering is more accurate if you want to optimize to what Google's doing, which is obviously what we're here to do. The problem is with SERP-based clustering, it can be confusing to look at. Now, what I mean by that is, we're going to go through this diagram here, something I call keyword fragmentation. Now, this is what really happens on a SERP-based clusterer, and it wouldn't happen on an NLP one. Lots of tongue twisters there. So let's say each one of these circles is a keyword cluster, and each one of these shapes within a circle, in the circle, is a keyword. So in this cluster here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keywords. And in this cluster, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keywords. Sorry, 6 keywords. My counting was off. And in that keyword, this cluster, I think there's 7 keywords. Now, each one of these sort of lines is a URL they have in common. So you can see here that these 6 or 7 keywords share 1, 2, 3, these 4 URLs in common with one another, which is why they get grouped into this cluster. The problem is this keyword here also might share 2 URLs in common with these keywords because they're quite similar. So these clusters are a little bit similar. The intents may be a bit different, but this keyword here shares a lot in common with these keywords. It's been grouped into this cluster because it has more in common with these, but it does share a few in common with these. Similarly, this cluster, this keyword shares 2 URLs in common with these ones, and this one shares 2 URLs in common with those ones. So this can happen with a SERP-based cluster just because sometimes the search results, there's an overlap depending on the keyword, right? So why I call this keyword fragmentation and what can be confusing is, as with most keyword clustering tools, we name the cluster after the keyword with the most volume. So let's say, for example, in this keyword cluster here, this keyword had the most volume, and in this keyword cluster here, this keyword had the most volume. This cluster would be named after this keyword, and this cluster would be named after this keyword. So you can start to see how that can be quite confusing to look at. If you're scanning across in your report and you notice and you start looking at, that's how we call our clusters. So you start scanning across, this one and this one might seem really similar, and you're like, well, that's rubbish results because they look like the same keyword. And actually, if you then went into our SERP similarity tool and tested them, they do show they're really similar because they were in those 2 clusters. Like, this did share a lot in common with that one. So that's why keyword fragmentation and SERP clustering tools especially can be confusing, especially in scenarios like this, where you might look at 2 keyword clusters, and on the surface of it, if you're just scanning across and looking at the top names of them, and they look really similar, that looked really similar to that one, you might think, well, this doesn't help me at all because I don't know what to do with it. Now, we have solved that problem by combining a little bit of NLP and refactoring our algorithms. So now you're going to have the best of both worlds. So not only are we more accurate than an NLP or SERP, NLP or semantic based clustering, we're more accurate because we're actually grouping based on what Google does. Not only are we more accurate, but we're less confusing than other SERP clustering tools as well. We're less confusing to look at because when you scan across our results now, there'll be less cases of what I call keyword fragmentation. You won't see this as often. So it means generally when you're looking at your results from a keyword insights report, the results will make a lot more sense. Anyway, thanks very much for listening. Hope that made sense. Please reach out for any questions.